So, if you're a leader deploying AI with systems like RAG, you've created something incredibly powerful, a memory for your AI. But here's the catch. You've also opened up a brand new and frankly often overlooked attack surface. Today we are going to break down a critical risk area that needs to be on every CISO's radar, the security of your vector databases.
Okay, let's really dig into this because this is the absolute core of the issue. We're way beyond simple data theft now. Attackers are actually targeting the intelligence of your AI. They're trying to steal or corrupt its unique understanding of your business, which, let's face it, is probably the source of your competitive edge. So you really can't think of this as just another database. You gotta picture it as your AI's personal reference library, its long-term memory, and at the heart of it all are these things called embeddings. You can think of them like a digital fingerprint for meaning. This is the engine that powers systems that can pull in outside knowledge to give way better answers. You know, the technique called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. It's how AI finds exactly what it needs in an instant.
But, and this is a big but, if you're thinking your existing database security playbook has all this covered, well, there's a pretty critical gap we need to talk about. The old rules are just not going to be enough for this new world.
That's exactly it. You know, just because we're not dealing with traditional SQL databases, that doesn't mean we're safe from attacks where somebody injects malicious data. The methods have just changed. They've gotten way more sophisticated, and they're tailored to exploit how these new AI systems actually think.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because you can see the fundamental differences here. Your traditional security tools, like a web application firewall, they're built to understand structured queries. They speak the language of rows and columns. But they are completely blind to the mathematical language of similarity searches and numerical vectors that vector databases live and breathe. And this creates a massive, and I mean dangerous, security blind spot.
Right, so this blind spot, it isn't just a theoretical problem. It actually opens the door to 3 specific new kinds of attacks that the OWASP LLM Top 10 is warning about. Each one targets a different part of your AI's memory. Let's walk through them.
First up, and this one is maybe the most insidious, is that attackers can actually poison your AI's memory. They can inject malicious data that's cleverly disguised to look totally legitimate, corrupting the very source material your AI relies on to be smart.
And this just perfectly illustrates the direct business risk. I mean, can you imagine your customer service bot suddenly recommending a competitor's product? Or an internal financial model making huge decisions based on deliberately fake data? Your AI starts lying to you because its core reference library has been totally corrupted.
Second, attackers can work backwards from the vector embeddings to steal your most valuable proprietary knowledge.
Now, the crucial point here is that these embeddings, they aren't just random numbers. Think of them more like a highly compressed summary. With the right techniques, an attacker can basically unzip that summary to reconstruct your original documents. This puts your core IP at risk, and hey, if that data contains any personal information, you could be looking at a serious GDPR violation.
And finally, attackers can figure out what your AI knows about without ever seeing the actual data itself. Kind of sneaky, right?
This is a really subtle but powerful threat. By asking just the right questions, an attacker can confirm whether or not a specific piece of info, like say a document about a top-secret merger deal, even exists in your database. This is classic reconnaissance, and it lets them build a map of your entire knowledge base for future attacks.
And it's not just about direct attacks. Your supply chain, especially the embedding models you rely on, brings in a whole other layer of risk. When a model provider pushes an update, the mathematical meaning of your stored vectors can just shift. This can silently break your AI's logic, or even worse, create new security loopholes that your existing tools will never see coming.
So, how in the world do we build a defense against these new and pretty complex threats? Well, let's get into a clear 5-layer playbook. It provides that defense in depth we all love and aligns really well with the principles of the NIST AI risk management framework.
What we're doing here is applying that classic security principle of defense in depth to this brand new challenge. We'll start with the foundational controls you're probably already familiar with, and then we're going to layer on some advanced, vector-specific detection and response. Now, I really want to pause on layer 2 for a second, because this is the strategic imperative right here. Embedding validation is all about stopping those poisoning attacks at the front door. I mean, if you can validate your data sources and scan content before it gets turned into an embedding, you prevent that contamination from ever reaching your AI's memory. It's the shift-left approach, but for AI data security.
Okay, for your query filtering layer, here are some practical, real-world thresholds you can put in place like right now. Monitoring for a crazy number of queries or weird search patterns. That can be your first line of defense against those bulk knowledge extraction and inference attacks we were just talking about.
And for monitoring, here's a really clever tactic. You can actually plant canary vectors in your database. These are just harmless embeddings that should never, ever be triggered by a legitimate query. So if your monitoring system suddenly sees one of these canaries pop up, that's a super high-fidelity signal that someone is probing or messing with your system.
I know this 5-layer strategy can feel like a lot to take on all at once. So let's wrap this up with a clear, prioritized action plan to help you get started.
Look, you don't have to boil the ocean here. Just start with the fundamentals you already know. Lock down access control and make sure everything is encrypted end-to-end. Then you can mature your program by building in preventive measures like embedding validation. And finally, you evolve to advanced proactive detection with anomaly monitoring.
So the crucial question to take back to your team is this one. As you build out these incredibly powerful AI systems, are you treating its memory, your vector database, as the crown jewel asset it really is? Or is it becoming your next and, let's be honest, potentially most dangerous organizational blind spot?